Welcome. Thank you for joining me for our information meeting about Rwanda. This is going to be our first session of 3, and I hope you find this information very informative and useful in your future mission endeavors. Today we're just going to go over a little bit about the country of Rwanda, or as they say, Rwanda. They kind of just dropped the W completely. I'm going to assume that theirs is correct though. So, Rwanda is a country in the heart of Africa. It's also sometimes nicknamed the heart of Africa, also the country of 1,000 hills because it is severely hilly. It's located just south of Uganda, just north of Burundi, and just east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. And to its east, there is a beautiful Lake Victoria. So that's what Rwanda's like. It used to have 7.7 million people, but after a tragic incident in 1994, known as the Rwandan Genocide, it is now down to 6.5 million. About 1 million people died in that genocide in 30 days. So, quick overview of their worldview. First off, cognitive, what is it that they're seeking? What are they trying to obtain? Well, Rwanda is a predominantly Christian country, and as such, their values much reflect that of Christian morals. I kind of came up with a theme verse for some of what their values are, and that's James 1:27, where it talks about true religion being attending to the widows and orphans. After the Rwandan genocide, that is much of what Rwanda has become. People taking care of the widows, the orphans, because many of the men died in 94. That generation is now cycling to where the men are now thriving and alive, but it's still a mindset that's there. They take care of their own, they're young, they give to those that they can. However, at the same time, the people who do that are those who have stuff to give. Many of the people in Rwanda are very poor, and they live in a more survival basis. They work to get their food each day. For their effective mindsets, they're very enthusiastic. They're very emotionative. You know exactly when they're happy or joyful. They love laughing, using dance and stuff like that to express their joy. However, at the same time, they tend to be more reserved about their sorrows or sadness. Sometimes they have a hard time even knowing that that's what they are. They tend to lean more towards anger, and that's another emotion that can come out very quickly and very abruptly. And then we move into their evaluation of how do they figure out what's right or wrong. As I said, they are a predominantly Christian or Catholic country, and so their morals reflect that of Christians today. They've also been heavily influenced by the Western world, being colonized by the French in their history, and then just a bunch of missionaries to Rwanda have also influenced them. And so they tend to look at their values and what does the Bible say. At least that's what they vocalize. Sometimes they say they believe the Bible, but they don't follow it. I know many Christians in America that do that as well, but those people tend to be a little more selfish in their thinking and behaviors, and they go towards a fight for survival, me first, selfish type attitude. Next up, I want to look at their social organization. Their category, first, they believe in family. That is, their heart and soul is all about the family. Then it branches out into the community. The family plays a large role in the community. The community plays a large role in taking care of the family as well. The communities used to be known as hill community, or they'd have little villages all over the hills, and then they'd have a grander community called the Hills community. In the history, when they were living under a monarchy, they had chiefs in these communities, known as the Hills Chief, and they would kind of oversee and kind of run the whole hill as a whole, even though they're still subdivided down into community itself and the villages, and then the family itself. Communities, interesting enough, tend to take care of children running about in their village. If there's a child without a parent, someone in the village will immediately scoop up and take care of that child and take him in as their own, even if they don't have the means to. At the same time, everyone in the community, or in the village, I should say, knows exactly which child belongs to which person, or which parent. And so they're very much a tight-knit organization that help each other out. They sometimes help each other in farming. to build that relationship. In National Cultural Heritage Policy, it is a document written by the Republic of Rwanda's Ministry of Sports and Culture. They again talk about the importance of the family. And this is in a specific section talking about values of Rwandan culture. And what they say is the family served as the basic organizational unit in the Rwandan society. And they continue on towards the community aspect, and it played a watchdog function to ensure that values were inculcated in the youngsters to prepare them for adulthood. So the family very much instilled the values into the children, and then the community served as a watchdog to make sure that the parents were doing that to the children, and also teaching the children as well, getting them prepped for the adulthood. As well as in the social organizations, there used to be 3 tribes: the Hutus, the Tutsis, and the Twas. Everyone knows, anyone who's ever paid attention, I should say, to Rwandan history and the Rwandan genocide knows about the Hutus and the Tutsis as being in a massive civil war. The Twas, most people don't even know exist. They're less than 1%, very despised by the Hutus and Tutsis. But that being said, there's now laws about even bringing up your race, not even race, what tribe you're from. And even though you don't talk about which tribe you're from, people can still point out who's from which tribe. I have a pastor friend in Rwanda named John Melissa, and on many different occasions he's recounted his story and how life is in Rwanda. And he tells me how he can walk down the street and goes, that's a Hutu, that's a Hutu, that's a Tutsi. And he was alive during the Rwandan genocide as a refugee, and he was living in Uganda at the time. He came back as a lawyer to work on forgiveness. He defended those who committed most of the war crimes. Really amazing man. I'm really glad I've gotten to know him so far. So they have those 3 tribes. No one talks about them, but they still kind of exist. And the racial tension now is very limited, but there is still some there. Going to identity. The identity is more in self. It's a survival aspect, especially if you're in one of the big cities, such as Kigali. You're more about yourself as kind of a Western idea, but you definitely have an identity in your family and also in your village or community that you're in. You're not so much are you bringing honor or shame to them, but you're thinking about how can I help my family, how can I help my community so that we all have food to eat, that we all can survive, and sometimes just how we can have fun. Moving on to gender roles. Gender roles are very different depending on where you are located in Rwanda. According to an article, Women in Rwandan Politics and Society by Wallace, Hartford, and Abbott, states, Rwanda has the highest representation of women in parliament in the world. Women are also well represented at other levels of governments, and Rwanda has pursued a strong gender equality political agenda. This is true. It's also reiterated in National Cultural Heritage Policy by the Ministry of Sports and Culture that they are working towards gender equality. So women are very much allowed in positions of power in the government. However, as you start getting out into the villages and away from big cities, the article continues, or you'll start to see a lot more of a patriarchal society where the oldest male in the community has the most respect. And it's kind of harking back to when they were living under a monarchy and they had the chiefs in the hills. The Women in Rwandan Politics and Society article continues to say, however, the situation of the majority of Rwandan women remains very poor and patriarchal attitudes are entrenched. And that's very much seen in the villages. Like I said though, in the urban settings, in the cities like Kigali, you're going to see a lot less of that where women are allowed to have a voice and opinions. So who has the power? Government officials have the highest power, they have the most respect. The more educated you are, the more respect you are going to have in their society. So government officials tend to have the highest level of education, followed by lawyers. They have the next level of respect. After that, you get religious leaders, the pastors, like I said, predominantly Catholic and predominantly Christian. Society, slight Muslims, and then there's well actually we'll get into religion a little later. But the religious leaders, like I said, John Melissa is a pastor and friend, but he's also a lawyer first, and so he has a lot of respect he carries a lot of weight and respect when he travels anywhere. People respect who he is and what he does. He talks on radios and people listen to him because of the education levels he has obtained. So then we go to institutions. Economically, first off, they are not well off. They are a third world country, very poor. My sister is going to be moving there, and she can essentially rent a house with utilities for $25 a month. There is in the villages, it's like I said, they're surviving. They work each day for the food that they're going to eat that day. Usually we live in America paycheck to paycheck, where we can get paid one day and then we have sufficient funds for 2 weeks. No, they're working day to day to eat that day. Again, coming back to the national cultural heritage policy, it talks about how the economy, they're wanting to make it better, but they currently have insufficient infrastructure for tourist activities. They want to bring more tourists into this land of 1,000 hills. And they're hoping that they can build that so that they can bring tourists in and they can boost their economy that way. Like I said, villages are in poverty, they're fighting for survival. And then we get to education. I've previously talked about how education is very important in respect. The higher level of education you have had, the more respect you're going to get. And so education, though, for them, it's hard to attain. They want it, but it's not easy. They are very poor, but all education is required to be paid for. You have to pay for uniforms, books, meals, and most families can't afford it. A lot of what the families will do is they'll pick one child. One child in their group gets to go to school. That one child will get the education and hopefully can supply for the family when they've completed primary and secondary schools. After that, how is the law ran? The law used to be ran by the communities. It was the chiefs in the hills that ran disciplinary actions. And sometimes that can still happen. If you're living in a remote village, you're not going to really worry about going and getting city officials to help in your business, unless it's a really serious crime. Sometimes the communities can self-police. But law is typically ran by the officials in the major cities. They have judges, they have courts, they have trials, and that's how laws work. Kinship. How do people react with one another? This is one of the things I found really interesting. I love how Rwandese people interact. And this is probably coming from a bias because I got to tour with a choir of children from Rwanda, Africa, and a few of their chaperones. And I got to see a lot of this in action. The one that I found really entertaining, really endearing, is all the kids, all the children, to anyone that's older than them, as a sign of respect, we'll call them auntie or uncle. Kind of harkening back to that community. They had mom and dad, sister, brother, and then everyone else is auntie and uncle. Because they're older, they're showing that respect to them. And so to this day, I get Facebook messages now from these kids who are growing up. They're saying, "Hey, Uncle David, do you remember me?" And I've gotten to have these wonderful conversations. According to an organization called Great Lakes Agency for Peace and Development International, that is a mouthful of an organization name. They're an organization that aims to bring peace to the regions around the Great Lake, or Lake Victoria, such as Burundi, Uganda, Rwanda, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. But what their article says is they're talking about how children, or how people interact with one another. Specifically, how do children interact with elders? Not only do they call them auntie or uncle, also this pertains to women in this particular aspect, but eye contact might be more indirect during a conversation. They may look down and not look you directly in the eye as a sign of respect. And that's coming from both women and children, harkening back to that patriarchal society for the women. As well, people of the opposite sex talk with little to no touching in public. If you're married and in your private home, absolutely there's physical touching, but in public, little to none. However, friends of the same sex will hold hands. It is a sign of friendship. And probably the most intriguing thing that came out of the article from this organization says, greet everyone that passes you. It is important that whenever you're walking in the city, whenever you're walking in the streets or the villages, you greet everyone. Even if it's with a simple maraho, which means hello in their language. And then we get to religion, and I've talked extensively about their religion, about how it's predominantly Catholic or Christian. A few remnants of ancient religions exist though. They're very scarce, they're hard to find, but there is two that countries and their cultures, it's a publishing company that has essentially encyclopedias for Kubantwa and Nyabingi. Both of these religions worship ancestral heroes. which is kind of rare in this aspect. They used to work under a monarch, which believed that the monarch was the incarnation of God. Since then, the French came in, colonized, maybe not for the better, but at least they passed off Christianity and Christian ethics and values and beliefs to them. And now they worship Imana, which is God in their language. And speaking of language, that's where we're going to end today, is in language. They speak 3 languages in Rwanda: Kinyarwanda, French, and English. Kinyarwanda is spoken universally, everyone knows it. French and English are spoken to those who get higher education. French and English are actually taught a little bit in the school, in primary school, but it's predominantly emphasized in secondary school. I talked about my sister, Kayla Chambers, moving to Rwanda soon. She's already done multiple long-term mission trips, been there for months at a time. And I got the pleasure of interviewing her recently, catching up with her, and asking her about her experience there. And she was telling me about a really unique process in naming kids. Apparently, in Rwanda, they have 2 names given. They don't have a surname like we do here. They don't have a family name. But they have their called name. This is what you're going to call them. I'm called David. My sister's called Kayla. And then they have a happenstance name. This is a name given to the child that, when they're born, that kind of describes what's happening at the time, or what's needed, or what God provided. My sister sponsors a child, and the child's name is Divine. That's her called name. However, her happenstance name is Nira Mukomeza, which means the one who strengthens us, the one referencing God. My mom's sponsored child is named Anita, and I could not find the paperwork for the life of me of what her actual name is, but I remembered it meant God loves me. And I just thought that that was amazing and adorable, and I've gotten to meet Anita. She's a wonderful child. And so yeah, that's our basic overview of Rwanda. It's a patriarchal society predominantly, but working on gender equality. It's impoverished. Much of it is survival, fight for your life. Well, not life, but fight to eat every day. But at the same time, it's Christian-based. They do know God, even if they don't always practice it, they know it. And there's major efforts there to make following God more of a priority in the Rwandese people's lives. Thank you. Have a great evening.